to have this debate is Benny Peiser, head of Policy for Net Zero, which is a new organisation which has come out of the Global Warming Policy Foundation, and Honorary Research Fellow from Imperial College, Richard Black. Gentlemen, good evening, and thank you for joining us here in this debate.
Good evening, Nigel.
Richard, let's start with you. As I say, the fact we're even debating the possibility of the lights going out, and quite a few estimates that I've seen from across the board say that we'll be down to sort of excess capacity of about 4%, which could mean, one major disaster, such as the recent fire we had with an interconnector with Europe, that if this was to happen in February, at a time when a big anticyclone was sitting over the United Kingdom with frost and fog and no wind, that the lights could go out. So firstly, Richard, let me ask you, do you agree with me that it's astonishing that we're even having this debate, and how do you view the prospects of the lights going out?
I would be very surprised if we see the lights go out, but I think we are undoubtedly in for a winter of much higher energy bills than Britain's had for quite a long time. But the root cause of this is really all related into the international gas market. Gas is an internationally traded commodity, and companies, whether they're private companies or whether they're state-owned companies like, Gazprom, they basically sell it for whatever price they can get at. And that's why we're in this position. I mean, you referred to the closure of the gas storage facility 4 years ago, which was operated by an arm of Centrica. They wanted to close it because they didn't see it was economically viable. The government went along with that. The fact is, the UK does have lower gas storage than most other European countries.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, there's also the point here, and of course, you're right. The market price for commodities is the market price. But in terms of surety of supply, wouldn't it just make sense to produce more of our own natural gas, firstly from the North Sea and secondly from the northwest of England?
Well, no, I think it works like that. And if you sort of advocate having state-owned companies so that the gas is sort of owned by Britain, then that makes sense. But otherwise it doesn't. And we see proof of this. So a couple of weeks ago, as this was all starting to take off and the gas prices was already fairly escalated, the UK saw its biggest ever exports of gas produced from the UK North Sea to the EU. Why? Because demand was high. The companies could get more by selling it over there than they could by keeping it in Britain. The thing is, there's a lot of support I know around in certain of the newspapers at the moment for fracking and so on. The reality is that the volumes of gas you could produce by fracking would be so small that they could not affect the global price. And also fracked gas would be owned by whichever company takes it out of the ground. And again, they'd sell it for wherever they wanted to sell it to.
I get that. But here we are, not producing our own natural gas, not producing many manufactured products that we used to, patting ourselves on the back for reducing CO2 emissions, when all we've done is actually export that to other countries.
Well, the exporting of emissions, I don't think it's really happened via energy policy. It's really happened because, globalization is a thing that tied up with labor practices and labor prices and all this kind of thing. And that's why, China is manufacturing goods that used to be manufactured in Britain. Of course, that takes away the emissions as well. But I think that there's a couple we need to differentiate here between the short-term problem that we have here, which is going to unfold on a timescale of months, and then the future direction of UK energy policy, because nothing that we could do right now, whether it's increasing fracking, new commitment to nuclear, more renewables, whatever it was, nothing is going to affect the winter that we're going to go through.
No, and just finally, if I may ask you, Richard, the French, if they wanted to, and let's face it, we are at loggerheads with France over sausages into Northern Ireland and fishing rights and the AUKUS deal and many things. But literally, we've left ourselves in a position where the French could turn the lights out in this country if they chose to. Isn't that madness? And shouldn't we be aiming for some degree of self-sufficiency?
I think the thing is that electricity, when you're near another landmass, such as we are to Europe or Japan is to Korea or something like this, you absolutely can trade electricity. And in a sense, why wouldn't you do that? We trade food, we trade clothes, we trade vehicles, we trade all kinds of things. Why wouldn't you actually trade electricity? It is a system that can actually benefit everybody because, in the winter when there's higher demand, we can import from Europe. In the summer, we can sell, electricity, wind and solar back to the EU, which is going to happen more and more and more. And a country like Norway, for example, which has a massive amount of pumped storage hydro, can actually become a sort of battery then for other bits of Europe, including Europe. So it does actually make sense on a long-term basis.
In normal market conditions and normal politics, what you say is logical and right. I just fear we leave ourselves vulnerable. But I thank you for coming on and giving your point of view. And Benny Peiser, you heard what Richard Black had to say. He's very much of the view that we don't face a real threat this winter. How do you feel about this?
Well, that's perhaps the only point I would agree. I don't think we face a serious threat of blackout. There is a risk, but the government will throw any money at it, and in all likelihood will have to rely on our remaining coal-fired power plants to keep the lights on, because that's what's currently happening. Coal fire is very popular, it's cheap, and it is basically we are relying on coal to keep the lights on. But apart from that, I disagree with most of what Richard said. These are the kind of official green myths that I think this winter will go out of the window. Particularly the irony that we're sitting on one of the biggest shale basins in the world.
Yeah.
A gold treasure.
This is up in the northwest, isn't it?
In the northwest.
Yeah.
And we're not using it. There's enough natural gas for about 50 years, perhaps even more at current gas prices. And the government just 2 days ago refused an application for natural gas drilling in the North Sea. So it's complete and utter madness. Yeah. And the real risk we face isn't so much blackout. The real risk is that a lot of businesses will go under because they will no longer be able to afford the rising energy price. We already see energy-intensive industries begging for handouts. And of course, if they get handouts, the rest of the industry will say, well, we can't cope with these energy prices. Never mind consumers who are being clobbered with taxes on their gas bills.
And Benny, there's nothing the government can do about the world market price of gas. We understand that, we get that.
There is no world market price. Let me tell you...
Well, there's a European market price, isn't there?
It's a regional one. In the US, the gas price is a sixth of what it is here. So here we pay 6 times more than in the US. So it's not a gas shortage.
But that's because of green levies and VAT and many other things that go on bills.
Because Europe has banned the exploration and extraction of shale gas. The US is swimming in cheap natural gas because they are fracking. They are using their resources. And Europe, because of the environmental movement, the governments have banned fracking throughout Europe. There are big shale basins. There's no lack of natural gas. There is a political decision not to use it.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And finally, Benny, out of 10, how would you rate the chances of the light going out this winter?
As I said, I don't think there is a serious risk because the government will throw everything at it. There is enough capacity. The real risk, at least for the short term, is not lights going out, the companies going under, and people struggling to keep their homes warm as the price goes through the roof.
Thank you very much indeed, Benny Peiser, for joining us here. Well, you've heard both sides of that argument.